a conversational tier list from PancreasNoWork on the Primarchs. Well, I can tell you this. There are a few in here that are going to be F tier right out of the gate. And I can't even, like, for me, straight out of the gate, we're tossing Mortarion in there because he stinks too much to be around. We're tossing Curze in there because, my God, the man talks to himself enough. We are most absolutely 100% not even blinking when we throw the lion in there. Guys, each one of the Primarchs had a massive hang-up. And to be honest with you, some had worse hang-ups than others. I'd say the S-tier conversationalist would be Fulgrim, you know, of course, before he turned into a snake demon. Horus, of course, because he's frickin' Horus. Sanguinius. Sanguinius is perfect. I'd give A's to the Khan. I'd give S to Alfarius because he could just blend in with whatever. Dorn would get a D unless he's talking about, you know, I don't know, sieging and fortifying. And then he gets an S. Same with Perturabo. Actually, Perturabo just gets an F all around because, Jesus Christ, the guy is just too pissed off for words. I will stop this individually. I will let you guys know if I agree with PancreasNoWork says. But for the most part, this is going to be, if you were forced into a room with the Primarchs and sat down with them, how would this go for you? Would it be good? Would it suck? Let's find out what PancreasNoWork thinks. All of his links are in the description down below. Remember, hit the like button, leave a comment, let's go.
Slop. You may not like the Primarch slop itself, but you like watching it. It's the Warhammer equivalent of eating potato chips. You watch a video about someone talking about the Primarchs, you go, that sure was a Warhammer video, then you move on with your life. Maybe you leave it at that, maybe you have the entire family bag of chips, which I guess in this analogy is watching a video about every Primarch back to back.
Right.
And you know what else is the YouTube equivalent of just eating a bag of potato chips? Something that's barely substantial but still fun and tasty? Tier lists.
Yay!
So you know what? Today we're doing a tier list. It's the holiday season, and my present to myself is a month of easy content to pump out.
And you know what? The sheer fact of the matter is, a tier list about the Primarchs with PancreasNoWork, now that's Cool Ranch Doritos.
Defy YouTube tradition of making quality, wide-reaching videos for the month of December. You're all going to be drowning in slop with me.
Yay!
And the slop in question? How do the Primarchs rank in their ability to hold a conversation with someone? Because at a certain point, ranking a Primarch based on their combat abilities or leadership almost doesn't matter. Some are clearly better than others, but they're all going to be able to stomp things flat, and their legions usually listen to them when they were in the same room at the very least.
At the very
Some
least.
of the Primarchs are pinnacles of conversation skill, able to hold one with even the most socially inept of us. Others, meanwhile, make the most socially inept of us look like we max charisma. So join me today, viewer, as we judge fictional people based on how well I think they could have a casual conversation with someone else.
Let's go.
Truly the groundbreaking content that Warhammer fans crave.
It is 100% the groundbreaking content that we all crave. 1,000%.
But before anything else, look at this cool rotating pen.
Ooh.
This right here, one of the coolest things I've seen in my life, and it writes like I'm using butter for ink. And if you'd like to get yourself one, allow me to introduce you to the sponsor of this video, Novium. Novium doesn't just make pens. Simply saying that is like saying an Emperor-class Titan is kind of big. It completely undersells what you're looking at here. Allow me to introduce you to the Novium Hover Pen Interstellar. Just for this, I decided to write myself a letter to Santa in the spirit of the holidays, and let me tell you, writing it felt amazing. While you can't see my letter to Santa, you can get my solid assurance that this writing experience was magical. And
that is a good-looking beard you have there, sir.
Of course, the name Hover Pen. This thing hovers on its stand at a nice 23.5-degree angle on your desk without any electricity involved. You know what else tilts at a 23.5-degree angle? The very earth you're standing on. Tell me that isn't cool. You can't, because it is cool. Even better, you can get the meteorite embedded version. It's got a tiny shard of meteorite used to make the tip, which aside from being amazing on its own, means that it's likely the oldest thing you'll ever hold, since it predates the Earth itself by a good 20 million years. And as a gift, it's pretty unmatched. If the recipient is an artist or an old-fashioned kind of writer, the Hover Pen Interstellar will let them put that pen to paper smoother than ever before. Okay,
that is actually kind of cool, to be honest with you. To be perfectly honest with you, that's kind of cool.
If they're a science enthusiast, the way it hovers and the tilt it hovers at would make it the perfect pen for them too. Even if not, everyone at some point has to sign something, and you might as well make that experience as comfortable as possible, and it just looks really cool sitting on your desk. You can get it in all sorts of snazzy different colors, and it's completely refillable too.
And if my word isn't enough, it was given Times Awards for being one of the best inventions of 2022.
And of course the Hover Pen Future. With a more futuristic looking design, it's available as a 2-in-1 fountain and rollerball pen with an interchangeable tip. However you want to write, the Hover Pen Future can make the experience all the better. And if you want to grab one for yourself or as a gift for someone special, look no further. With code Pancreas and my link in the description, you can get yourself 10% off all Hover Pens and free shipping to most countries.
Yes.
Just use the QR codes or links in the description and code Pancreas to get 10% off all Hover Pens and free shipping to most countries.
There you go.
There's always going to be a need for a pen, so why not use Novium and its delightful Hover Pens to make your writing that much better. Now then, time to see which of these 9-foot-tall monstrosities would be fun to talk to. I would also like to apologize for my voice. I'm not sick, but what I am is someone who spent 8 hours straight going from screaming at Rocket League to screaming at Black Ops 6.
There you go.
Unlike almost every other video about Primarchs, I'm going to come swinging hot out the gates with something actually substantial to say about one of the missing ones. The 11th can go straight to hell still, but the second Primarch was actually given the barest of characterization by Fulgrim of all people. At one point, mention is made that Fulgrim was accused of being incredibly arrogant by the second for saying he could bring a world to compliance with only 8 Marines backing him up. Fulgrim made note on how his brother was usually a contemplative guy, pretty quiet and lacking a sense of humor. He also felt that the second was being pretty hypocritical by accusing Fulgrim of arrogance. So based on this, we have someone who's
somebody more arrogant than Fulgrim. That's a peach.
best a Zen monk kind of person who probably wouldn't want to talk, and at worst we have the world's least interesting man. His only topics of conversation are either going to be imperial propaganda or the lovely shade of the paint drying on his walls.
Hooray!
So I'm putting him firmly in the D tier. I don't have an image for him because no one does, so this PNG of Sans is going to have to do.
There you go.
I hope it mildly disturbs you every time I bring the list up. Anyway, since we did skip ahead for the 2 no-shows, now we go in order. Lionel Johnson. And I'm sorry, Dark Angels fans, but this man is famously horrible at holding the slightest conversation. He's a cool dude, don't get me wrong, but in terms of trying to talk to the guy, I cannot imagine it going over well. At least during the Horus heresy, this was the case. There's a lot to be said about how the Lion is a pretty introspective guy, and by no means am I accusing him of being stupid. Him being the most likely candidate for War Master after Horus goes to show that.
Right.
And in an effort to give him the most credit possible, he wasn't interested in appearing charismatic because that wasn't the task the Emperor gave him. Dad told him to go conquer the galaxy, so he would. Dad did not tell him to make best friends out of everyone he met, so he didn't bother. And unlike other Primarchs that are equally crap at conversation, the Lion genuinely just didn't give a damn if he didn't like him. You didn't need to like him to follow his orders. So it didn't factor in. Plus, he was pretty awe-inspiring, so like or not, you'd probably end up doing what he said. With all that out there, though, come on, be honest. You know damn well this man couldn't hold casual conversation to save his life. Aside from just possessing zero social skills, he also possessed some of the most outstanding arrogance around. And unlike others, such as Magnus, who at least try to make some token explanation as to why he was the best, the Lion wouldn't bother. Being an arrogant prick is nothing new amongst the Primarchs. That's damn near all of them to some degree or other. Being an arrogant prick who doesn't even try to mask it or play it off in some way is less common, but that's the Lion. He was also so damn sure in his worldview that he physically came to blows with his brother. Yes, Leman absolutely started it because he was angry about the Lion kill stealing. But the Lion finished it even after Leman realized how stupid the fight was and stopped. In his eyes, Leman had personally insulted his honor and all that crap, and it was like he just couldn't realize that his brother wasn't laughing at him, but with him. I imagine this would be the case with almost everything the Lion does, and if you make a joke about his latest crusade, you'd get your head smacked clean off like a certain chaplain of his did. I think I might genuinely wager the Lion is a better commander than Horus, at least in certain circumstances. But out of all the reasons Horus...
I would wager the Lion is a better general than Horus, period. Like, Horus was really good at what he did, but the Lion, the reason that he probably didn't get the nod for War Master is because of all the social reasons that he has had been highlighted for thus far. The Lion was, simply put, socially backwards. Horus was a social butterfly. So, who do you want to be? I mean, I understand that, you know, we're looking for a good general, but they're all Primarchs, so they're all decent. At the very least, like, top 50 generals of all time. But, I mean, it's the Lion. Of course, I'd pick Horus too.
Scott to be War Master, one of them is because the Lion is one of the most off-putting people to ever live. To backtrack on this all a bit though, his return in modern 40k seems to have granted him more than anything one hell of a charisma boost. He seems more content to protect what he reasonably can and has forgiven the fallen that haven't gone whole hog on chaos. He goes as far as to ask for help, not just commanding it. Being a Primarch, he tends to get it, but still, that's a huge step up from how he was 10,000 years ago.
Massive.
Apparently he's like wine and he gets better with age. Still though, he's got a lot of practice to get in before I think you could call the guy a charmer. And do you really think a long car ride with him would be fun?
No.
I don't think so.
No.
Son of the Forest is enough to convince me to bump him to D tier, but I don't think he's gonna be fun to talk to even in his newer appearances. Just less shit to talk to. Up next is Fulgrim, and I'm willing to bet this man would be phenomenal to talk to about whatever.
Yes.
I'll even go so far as to say that even as a demon Primarch I'd enjoy talking to him, although perhaps for different reasons. Pre-heresy, Fulgrim's a chill dude.
Yeah, technically, Fulgrim after the change could tell you a lot of stuff that you probably shouldn't know about, to be honest with you.
Dude, all things considered. Was he arrogant? Oh,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Oh,
The
yeah.
second may be a boring asshole, but you don't brag about being able to take a world with only 8 guys if you aren't at least a little bit full of yourself. But let's look at some of the rest of his history a bit. He landed on Chemos after a bit of a switcheroo on behalf of Kegarak, which was a real dump of a planet. Not in the traditional 40k sense, but they were so low on supplies that lone orphans were killed to avoid straining things even further. But despite this, they took him in as an infant because he's a Primarch, and the dude
Of
over the
course.
course of his early life restructured the entire planet to be an actually decent place to live. Now think about what that entails. Consider the countless business meetings the dude would have to attend with hardened factory workers whose entire lives were spent figuring out how to maximize production. He had to go around convincing them that his new way of figuring things out was right.
Right.
That takes charm, but he
Yes, it
managed
does.
Further proof, dude was married multiple times. He kept outliving them, and the depression this gave him made him grow detached from reality and mortals, but he did love some of them. I don't believe the marriages in themselves were ever a source of sadness for him, just them ending as a result of him being immortal. We had a Primarch who was happily married on multiple occasions. The dude surely learned how to talk to normal people at least a bit. And of course, the ultimate thing in his favor, the dude made friends with Ferrus Manus.
Yeah.
If you can do that, you can make friends with anyone.
Yes,
he
you
was
can.
charismatic as all hell, he was a real friendly guy even to mortals, and I
S-tier.
bet that he would be a wonderful person to get some lunch with on a Saturday afternoon. As for my earlier comment, I think he'd be a great conversation buddy as a demon Primarch for an entirely different reason.
Massively.
Now, for legal reasons, I will say that I do not support the use of hard drugs, but I'm just saying that Fulgrim is gonna bring the good stuff.
Yes,
will
he
it
is.
potentially kill you? I would say more than potentially, it's almost certainly gonna end your life. But for those 15 minutes before your heart explodes, you and Fulgrim are gonna be the life of the party. So for these reasons, Fulgrim goes into S tier. Following one of the
Massively
most charismatic
agree.
Primarchs is perhaps the least charismatic Primarch.
Yeah, bottom of the barrel. Absolute bottom of the barrel. I am a fan of Perturabo, but my God, the man is just painful. He's just painful to deal with at the best of times.
Perturabo. Was he mistreated? Yeah. Is he 100% at fault for the shit hand he was dealt in life? Not quite, but that doesn't stop him from still being a whiny, petulant man-child. All the reasons you can possibly give to defend him, valid or not, won't make him have any less of a sandpaper personality.
Right.
Tell me right now, Perturabo defenders, what are you going to talk to him about? Because here's the thing, right? He knows everything. That's one of his shticks aside from being a bitter loser. He basically skipped his formative years because he came into the world an expert in every field in existence. So even assuming you can start a conversation with him, he's just gonna, well, actually, everything you have to say. And if you don't try and meet him on his level, which is again impossible, he's gonna have no interest in what you have to say. How's things?
He was born with a natural understanding of how things worked, and it sucked for him because he could never find wonder in anything. Like there was a part of his book where he was being shown some architecture, and he took one look at it, and he not only did he instantaneously understand the mathematics behind it and the composition of the construction materials used in it and how to actually make it stronger and more efficient, everything like that. But he also in his head understood that he was about to feel joy at seeing it, and then that joy was taken away from him because to him, the second that he saw it, it was old news. It would be, I can't even imagine how just joyless of a life that would be to have to, yes, you have the understanding of everything. But my God, does life suck. There is no wonder or joy or anything. Period. Everything at that point becomes just a function instead of an experience. Like, this leads to somebody that can do everything they do is superior, but they find no enjoyment in doing anything superior. He could probably be a better weapon crafter than Vulkan. He just never, he could probably be a better weapon crafter than Vulkan. He could probably be a better machinist than Ferrus Manus. But there's no joy in that for him. There's no joy in creating a masterpiece. That sucks.
Things been, Perturabo. They suck. Oh, sorry to hear that. Anything you want to talk about? No. And then you're done. That's the conversation. And if nothing else convinces you, consider that the first words to his legion were kill yourselves. Perturabo
pretty
gets
much
slam dunked into F tier with the force of hydraulic press, and I hope they reveal he's been locked in a box for the last 10,000 years. Now we come to Jaghatai Khan, and I'm sorry, Andy, but I'm not sure how good a conversationalist he would be.
I'd say easily
Don't
A.
get me wrong. Jaghatai Khan has got some things going in his favor. He isn't Perturabo. In a lot of ways, the Khan does seem pretty down to earth. He's pretty big on freedom and the like, and isn't a huge fan of the Imperium or empires in general, so if nothing else, we've cleared the bar of him just spewing propaganda at you. Him and his legion are big on more casual arts like calligraphy, and obviously he was a fan of horse riding, so at the very least he has hobbies to talk to you about.
Yeah.
And I'm sure you're aware of him verbally annihilating Fulgrim with the "I hear you do strange things to your warriors" comment, so we know the dude's wit is at the top tier of the Imperium. The Khan, I imagine, would be down for some deep talks if you could convince him to open up, and I think you'd come away with some newfound outlooks on life. But if you just want to hold a conversation about how your week's been with the guy, talk about the game last Sunday or just shooting the shit, good luck. I don't think he's gonna provide. Jaghatai Khan's always been a bit of a loner. He does his thing off in the corner without bothering anyone else, or anyone else bothering him. That was his legion's military doctrine for the Great Crusade. And while his appreciation for the warp means he could be pretty philosophical and meant he could be friends with Magnus, he was also pretty standoffish as a guy amongst his brothers and outsiders alike.
True.
I've said before that Guilliman considered his Ultramarines to be the brightest legion there was, the pinnacle of Astartes' capabilities. That said, he would happily integrate any and all improvements his brothers might make should he see their value. Switching back to the Khan, in his mind it was either you thought the White Scars were the best legion ever and their ways and culture were unmatched, or you thought they were stupid, disgusting barbarians who were stupid and dumb and bad. Now take that attitude and apply it to the realm of conversation. You somehow get the Khan to even talk to you, because you presumably aren't Chagorian, so it's already an uphill battle getting to that point, and maybe you mention that calligraphy thing. You ask, oh, what's it like, and mention how you were never really into that kind of stuff, and he takes it as a personal attack on him, and the conversation just ends as he goes to sulk in the corner of the bar and wait for Magnus to show up or something. Overall, I think I'm giving him a pretty firm C-tier rank. If you get
I don't see it that way. The Khan is, I would probably put him in B tier unless he's talking trash, in which case he goes in S tier automatically. He beat a demon Primarch in the form of Mortarion by simply trash talking him to the point of absurdity. That's how he won that fight. The Khan trash talked Mortarion until Mortarion was too emotionally damaged to continue. I seriously think he'd be in B tier on every regard, though. He's not average. I think he's better than average, to be honest with you.
Can somehow manage to connect with him, I think it can be a good time. But you either need to be ready for a deep talk or find out what he likes and only talk about that, because otherwise I don't think he's going to be giving you much. After him comes Leman Russ, and he's just going straight into the S tier, but with the caveat that it entirely depends on the kind of person you are. Short and sweet, I would love to talk with Leman Russ. He can be pretty introspective if you want a deeper talk. Him constantly throwing away the Emperor's spear and angsting over his status as an executioner shows there's at least some room for thought in his head, but it's for more casual conversation that the caveat comes in. Leman Russ is going to shoot the shit with you, and it's going to be the most free-flowing, no-effort conversation you've ever had. Even the most stereotypical shut-in nerd is going to find themselves yapping away with Leman without a care in the world. For God's sake, the dude read some of Lorgar's stuff and thought he was a cool dude. Leman will absolutely let you nerd out about whatever you want. The only issue is that as the conversation goes on, more and more beers are going to mysteriously pop into your hand.
Right.
I don't think it'd even be intentional on his part. You spend 15 minutes talking to him, and before you even realize it, you're 3 beers deep and working on the 4th.
with. So if you're not down to party a bit, Leman Russ is not going to be who you want to talk to. I would kill someone to go binge drinking with Leman Russ, which sure is probably a sign of alcoholism, but I don't care.
That's okay.
I'm putting him in S tier, and the S stands for shots. Rogal.
I'd probably put him in B tier, to be honest with you. I'm not a Leman Russ fan whatsoever. Period.
Dorn is next, and man, it's Rogal Dorn. He's a living brick. When I think of his conversation skills, one of the first things I think of is him outright telling Perturabo he can never breach a fortification Dorn had built. I get there's value in not sugarcoating things, but there's being honest, and then there's just being a dickhead. Dorn is not a nice man, and at one point he talked about how you shouldn't look to him or his legion or any Marines for kindness because that's not their purpose. But for some reason, and I don't know why, I feel like Rogal Dorn has one thread in him that could bring out the most enjoyable conversation imaginable.
Siege,
I cannot explain why in proper words or with evidence, because every time I read about Dorn, he comes across as the living brick wall that he is. But for some reason, I think there's a golden path you can take with Rogal that'll bring him to life. If you can meet him on this path and find that singular topic of conversation, it'll be the most engaging talk of your life. In every other case, the most you'll get is one-word affirmations and the occasional nod at best. I imagine Rogal Dorn would just likely sit down across from you and that'd be that. He might not even be unhappy about the matter and enjoy spending some time with you, but he's Rogal Dorn, and speaking is not something he does.
Right.
D for Dorn, because I cannot get this idea out of my head that there's one line of conversation to bring him to life, but aside from that, it's gonna be real rough going. Maybe
Legos?
we bring up trains. Rogal Dorn seems like the kind of guy to really like trains. F tier next, it's Konrad Curze.
Yeah.
There's not a single topic of conversation around that Konrad Curze is going to be good at. At least not a conversation topic you want to be a part of.
No.
He will without fault bring up flaying people alive because they deserve to live in fear, or because it keeps them in line, or because the voices are particularly loud that day, and hey, you've got some pretty flayable looking skin on you. Did you know that? Even if you do like the messed up stuff Curze would talk to you about, it doesn't matter. Because the moment you bring up that you too have an interest in flaying people alive, he's going to realize you're probably a bad seed and flay you alive so no one else gets any ideas.
Right.
For everyone who's not also a monster, you'll be too busy filling your pants with the contents of your stomach to even start talking to the guy about the weather. F tier, with the F standing for fear of being flayed alive.
Curze, simply put, without exception, is terrible at any social situation. The guy quite simply could not be in a room with a person for more than 5 minutes without torturing them. Like in the later stages of his life. He just couldn't be in the same place for that long. It was bad.
Following him up is Sanguinius,
S.
and I'm only putting him in A tier. Hear me out first. Sanguinius is the perfect angel guy, the coolest Primarch ever, and he's just the bestest boy around.
Right.
But he's too perfect. Every Primarch just has that Primarch aura around them that brings out strong emotions in people. You see them and you feel the need to bend the knee and follow them around.
Right.
For the sake of the video, I'm assuming with most of the Primarchs you can get past it, and their personalities themselves are going to bring out any feelings for the conversation. But Sanguinius is going to make you feel this constant feeling of celebrity or outright hero worship. You're never going to be able to have a true conversation with the guy, because the entire time, even if it's just in the back of your mind, you're going to be thinking, oh my god, that's Sanguinius. I'm talking to Sanguinius. He's the great angel. If he tries to push you on something, you're folding. If you say you're a Bears fan and he mentions liking the Packers, it doesn't matter, you would normally beat a Packers fan to death, the filthy rats that they are. Suddenly, without warning, you like the Packers now.
Yay!
Will you enjoy the conversation, whatever it's about? Yes, absolutely, 100%. But even more so than any other Primarch, I feel like I'm not going to be getting over the fact that I'm talking to a Primarch with Sanguinius. With some of the upcoming ones, they're almost specially tailored to talk to you on your level. And with Leman and Fulgrim, I'll forget I'm talking to a Primarch because I'm too busy reaching for my car keys. But with Sanguinius, I can't get over it, and you wouldn't be able to either.
Okay.
A tier. Ferrus man.
I can let that go. I can let that go. Ferrus Manus is B tier, if not A tier. The guy has a lot of interest in stuff, and he's a humble dude, okay? Ferrus is an okay guy.
Manus.
No!
Pretend that was
No!
his head getting dunked, if you wouldn't mind.
No!
Angron. Ah.
No, no, no. I am not letting that one go. No, he was actually pretty chill. He was actually pretty chill, even with his sons, everything like that. I would put him in B tier, if not A tier. Because I got a feeling Ferrus Manus could talk to you about a broad range of topics and find interest in that. He found interest in Fulgrim stuff, and they couldn't be more opposed, like personality-wise, if they tried. So, yeah, A to B tier. Pancreas, that was wrong.
Yes. Also F tier for this
Yeah,
guy.
yeah.
Now again, there are valid reasons he's not going to be a good conversation partner. He had nails jammed in his brain. I'm not strictly speaking faulting him for it.
Right.
But just because it isn't his fault doesn't mean that he's not going to sit down at the other end of the table and just stare at you, probably debating whether or not any trouble he might get in is worth gutting you so he can just leave already. Something to consider that's probably good for any media is that just because something has negative characteristics for a reason doesn't mean those negative characteristics are any less present or noticeable. I understand Angron being an unpleasant guy isn't entirely his fault. That doesn't mean I want to get lunch with him. Following up Angron, though, is another immediate S-tier placement, Roboute Guilliman.
Really?
Now, longtime fans of the channel will know that I am perhaps slightly biased in Guilliman's favor,
Okay.
but this time I swear I have reasons for it. I'm not just feeding you Matt Ward propaganda, even though I do buy into it. Guilliman is the statesman Primarch. Aside from logistics, that's his whole thing. He was custom built to go build empires. Not just conquer, but build. With that in mind, something that really helps a statesman is to be charismatic as all hell. He goes around convincing people that his way is best, that joining with the Imperium is a good idea, that listening to him is a good idea. It certainly helps that a solid 99% of the time, but even ignoring that, he was designed to be charismatic because that's his entire goddamn purpose. He's a leader and a damn good one, but part of that is being able to convince people to his side. Now with that translating to normal conversation, he's again just built for it. Dude is purpose-built to be able to talk to you and get you to like him. Not everyone will like him, of course, but most people that aren't also demigods of war like his brothers are going to be pretty happy after a talk with the Avenging Sun. And you know what? He has a personality outside of being a politician and a Primarch.
Right.
He told jokes, he did things in his free time. He straight up complained to Cato Sicarius of all people that in the modern Imperium, no one remembered anything about him beyond being the empire-building guy after he told a joke. He was annoyed that when he tried to be funny, all he got was confusion in response. And he's so goddamn charismatic that despite that Primarch aura, he got a rogue trader comfortable enough around him to crack some jokes at his expense and call him Robu. Am I going on the mother of all benders with Guilliman? Probably not, but goddammit, the dude can hold the conversation, and I'm putting him into S tier for it. Now for the next one,
I'll let that one slide. I'll let that one purely slide. But I'd say A tier. Tops.
Mortarion. And in full admittance, Mortarion is probably the Primarch I have the least amount of knowledge on his personality. Or in general, because I just never really cared to learn much about the guy.
Yeah.
He sits in my mind as a Primarch, and then I just glaze over the rest of the knowledge on him. I know he was a pretty bitter guy, though nowhere near Perturabo levels. He'd mostly just keep it at the level of grumbling. He did at least hold his sons in high regard, since the ultimate reason he fell to Nurgle at the end of things was because his sons were in constant agony and he wanted it all to stop, so we get some points there. But the ultimate reason I'm putting him into F tier is something that doesn't even have to do with his personality. You know how I said Primarchs have that aura that makes normal people want to bend the knee? Mortarion's aura makes you want to bend the knee because you're vomiting from the stench.
Truth.
It's not aura, he just smells like ass. Now that is a very weird thing for me to say, but let me tell you a story. At a local game store I visited, I was talking to the manager, just chit-chatting about minis and stuff. Normal small talk, like what half the Primarchs can never hope to manage. And at one point, someone there made a joke about some people just smelling horrible. To which the manager followed up with the fact he's had to tell people on numerous occasions to leave the store because they smelled so goddamn bad they were driving people out.
Right.
People would walk in, visibly grimace and scrunch their nose up, and then leave. That's Mortarion. He could be the most charismatic guy in the universe, but if you can't go near him without having to visibly force the urge to vomit down, you aren't holding a conversation with him.
And here's the thing, when Mortarion first revealed himself in demon form, Space Marines were losing their lunch on an industrial scale around him. It was quite simply put disgusting. The smell was so bad, it was ruining Space Marines who were already turned to chaos.
Obviously, it gets worse when he becomes a demon Primarch. You know what happened when everyone was getting ready for the Siege of Terra? Mortarion's stench was so foul that Trader Marines started vomiting and convulsing in their sealed armor. I'm sorry, but when the need to shower becomes the need to get hit with a fire hose, I'm not having a conversation with you. Deodorant is not that expensive, Mortarion. Use it. F tier for fart. Magnus is next, and we're gonna give him a solid B. For his favor, he was able to make friends with Jaghatai Khan, which is pretty damn impressive. If you can get that guy talking, I've got to imagine you've got some decent social skills in you. And while I'm fully aware that calling any of the Primarchs nerds is dipping into meme fanland, I'm also aware that most of you can surely at least picture Magnus being willing to play some card games or something. Yeah, he'd probably get way too into it, but he'd be down. Magnus would be into the weekly board game night. He'd probably bring something like Twilight Imperium, aka Stellaris if it was a board game, but if you
Battle Mace 40 million. He would be doing Battle Mace 40 million.
If you were down, it'd probably be fun, and I bet he'd be pretty chill to talk with during it. But his arrogance is also going to bring him down a bit here, just like it did with the Council of Nicaea. Now, it would be a lot more passive-aggressive, I feel, like with Curze, where he tried every single different argument style he could think of. At least to me, that argument did feel kind of passive-aggressive. So
Magnus, to me, feels like he'd be like one of those really hyper-religious people who you cannot say anything without them bringing up their special bond with God or, something like that. Like, you can't even hold a conversation with them that lasts for more than 5 minutes without them bringing up something that you just don't want to talk about.
during the board game night, he might make some patronizing remarks about your playstyle if he thinks you aren't playing optimally. Or he might not outright call you an idiot if he disagrees with you, but you're definitely going to feel the vibe. Especially since he's a psyker and that kind of basic empathy is probably as easy for him as breathing. Still, I'd much rather be stuck with Magnus on a long car ride than some of the others. At least he isn't going to stink it up like with Mortarion. B tier. Also, by this point in the script, I'm realizing the lion got like 4 pages all to himself. I don't know why I had so much to say about him. Horus is next, and he gets an overall A tier. Prior to his chaosification, he was full on S tier. He was willing to try and make peace with Xenos-allied civilizations, and every one of his brothers except for Corvus Corax liked the dude. He was the kind of person who could walk into a room of the most dour, bitter people imaginable and at least get a small chuckle out of them. It was one of the major reasons he was chosen to be War Master.
Right.
Everyone got along with him so well that there wouldn't be any bitterness or questioning of orders like there would be with, say, the lion. Having a magnetic personality doesn't cut it for Horus. He was just so goddamn likable. But the chaos thing is kind of hard to ignore, and once he was fully committed to it, his people skills sharply declined. Towards the end of the heresy, he was barely cognizant half the time, and while there were a few passages that read along the lines of, "I'm just pretending to be insane," the end result was still him being a real prick to talk to.
He wasn't even a real prick to talk to. He was just fucking out of it. He was just completely and totally zonked out of his mind on the chaos juice.
Chaos Horus, I would love to sit down and just see what he has to say about anything. Sports, his hobbies, how his career's going, you know, the crusade stuff, literally doesn't matter. Post-chaos, I'm good, thanks. He's either gonna foam at the mouth the entire time, or foam at the mouth for most of the time, and when I get up to leave, he'll say something about how it was all according to plan. Still,
like, seriously, if you said that, Horus, aside from, like, maybe, well, Horus and Fulgrim will be the best talkers out of any of the Primarchs, because I could fully believe you could talk to Horus about quite literally anything, and if he didn't have anything else to do, and he was just sitting there, he'd want to talk about stuff. He'd want to talk about anything. You could explain sports to him that are local to your world, your thoughts on the upcoming elections, anything. And he would give in way in his input. And that he was just so good socially. That's why the lion didn't get the nod for War Master.
Taking that into account, I think A tier is pretty damn good. Lorgar comes in next, and honestly, I think he'd be a pretty solid guy to talk with. A good A tier himself as well.
I would actually say that, yeah.
And I can guarantee that the image of your head of what talking to Lorgar is a Jehovah's Witness or some other door-to-door religious guy vomiting dogma all over you. That or Scientology. But I don't get that vibe from him, and it's because he was so successful with his spreading of the faith. Do you know how hard it is to convince someone to change their mind of what beer is best to drink, let alone their fucking religion?
Right.
This man has to be insanely good at speaking to people because he is convincing them to change their entire belief system. And out of everything you can accuse Lorgar of, failing to convince people the Emperor is a god isn't one of them. I really don't think Lorgar would be showing up with pamphlets at your front door. If he was sitting down with you, one-on-one, I imagine he'd be an insightful but easy to talk to dude. Yeah. It may be my bias because I worked for a church for 6 years straight, but I think a chat with Lorgar would be a nice conversation. If the whole faith thing really bothers you, then yeah, he's going to the F tier, but I think he'd be relaxed and unobtrusive with it, and during your chat, it'd be a pleasant conversation. Even Lorgar is, of course, gonna...
Lorgar would know, like, Lorgar would know how to approach a situation. He would know how to negotiate a situation in terms of how talking with somebody, getting in with somebody. Now, the problem is once you realize, you know, what he's up to, what he's doing, everything else like that, then you just kind of ignore him like all the other Primarchs did after they figured him out. But just meeting for them for the first time, yeah, A tier, easy.
Gonna be battering down your door to force you to learn about chaos, but if I gave Horus credit for his pre-chaos state, I'm giving it to Lorgar too.
Coming up on the last few Primarchs, Vulkan.
Yes.
You already know where he's going. It's the S tier.
Yes.
It's Vulkan. His entire shtick is being the nice guy Primarch, but actual nice guy, not the kind of nice guy who holds a door open for someone and thinks they're entitled to sex. Unless, of course, you don't bow down to Imperial rule, or are an Eldar child and or maiden world. But you're neither of those things, presumably. And in that case, Vulkan's got your back.
Yes.
He's the kind of guy who's gonna sit down and just hang out with you. Play some games, kick back and relax if he's got the time.
Talk about
If you need to
family.
get some heavy stuff off your chest, he'll hear you out. If you want to chill out, barbecue, and spend a day just relaxing by the pool, he's your man. I'd love to hear the guy just talk about his forging all day long. I bet it'd be really interesting. Get this man into S tier, and get this man a goddamn grill, because if he cooks half as well as he forges, I would kill for his food.
Yeah, and here's the thing about it. This is the God's honest truth. You could talk to Vulkan about family, and he would give you life lessons about family, to be honest with you.
Following up him, though, is Corvus Corax.
D.
And I'll give you 2 reasons why he's going into D tier. 1, he's every Edgar Allan Poe poem as a person. You try
Right.
to talk to him, and he's going to hit you up with some poetry about birds, or how everything sucks, or poetry about how everything sucks using birds as a metaphor.
There you
it's
go.
the Raven Guard's whole shtick. They're emo bastards straight out of 2005 Hot Topic. Plus, imagine Corvus in modern times after all he's been through. There was his failed stunt at trying to rush production Space Marines, which to be fair was ruined by the Alpha Legion, but he still personally went around putting a whole bunch of people down like sick dogs. That's gonna put some trauma in a man. And
Yep.
since then, he's been in the warp for 10,000 years and turned into a weird demon bird thing. In terms of potential models or plot hooks we might get, that's some damn good stuff. I'd love to see Demon Corvus. In terms of what that does for someone's sanity, let alone their conversational skills, no sir, I do not think Corvus is gonna have much to say.
No.
Maybe he won't be outright hostile, but I don't think he's got much on his mind beyond torturing Lorgar. And for 2, I won't be able to get over my intense bird lust. He's so dreamy when black library covers don't make him look like a pug. I won't be able to talk to him because I'll be too busy staring into his eyes. Anyways, do with that piece of reasoning as you will. He's staying in D tier, though.
There you go.
And for our last Primarchs, Alfarius and Omegon sharing a spot. Everything
Really?
they say is a lie. Everything they do is a lie. All there is with the Alpha Legion is a lie. Maybe as part of a scheme of theirs, the first conversation they have with you is triple S material. Then they find out it was all just so they could raid a facility or something, and your memories of it are completely soured. F tier. And that was the Primarch conversation tier list, because sometimes when I say I'm not trying for a bit, I really mean it. Once again, I do not know why I had so much to say about the lion. Thank you as always to my wonderful channel members. You are the Guilliman to my Primarch conversations, really elevating things to a much better place. If you'd like to support the channel, feel free to subscribe or become a member. Either way, thank you for watching, and take care out there.
All right. Has he got something else at the end? Yes, he does. Let's go.
Bird is the word, and I'm going to be screaming it all night long.
Okay, largely agree with his list. I was calling some of the ranks before we even hit them. The one for Ferrus, though, I honestly think Ferrus would be one of the best talkers out of anybody. He would be one of the best talkers out of anybody. Just because the guy is so humble, and, well, you're talking to a Primarch, and, I feel like, Horus eventually would make you really well aware of the fact that you were talking to a Primarch. I don't think Ferrus has that in him. Ferrus is just too chill, just to be honest with you. Guys, who do you think would be the most chill Primarch? Period. As far as having that conversation, having those conversations with. If I was on a road trip with any one Primarch, though, with any Primarch, period, I think I would have to sit there and bring along... Probably, I wouldn't want to bring on Sanguinius. I wouldn't want to bring on Sanguinius just for the fact that he would just be too perfect for everything. Yeah, it would be Ferrus. I would want to chill with Ferrus. Just because, like, the dude would just sit there and... He is just bro tier, okay? I'm just saying. Guys, leave a comment down below. Check the description. Join for early access, or as a Patreon for early access, and I will catch you guys next time. Ferrus is bro tier, okay?